I set a goal this league to try and make a level 91 character in every ascendancy before the league ends. And I managed to get it done. Very close to the deadline, but I got it done. I wrapped it up on the 12th. Just scraped in. Why? I don't know. I knew I would get bored early if I didn't give myself something to do. So yeah, this league comes around. I'm to start the league. We're doing some group play to try and make currency. We hadn't done it before. We're in the first week. We're playing. Our schedules aren't lining up. Our Aurabot can't make all the sessions. Things go a bit pear-shaped. So I build a second character just so I have something to do because I'm playing a colour that can't do anything. So yeah, and after that I was like, what am I going to do this league? I was kind of banking on the party play being interesting, and it wasn't. And so I thought, I'll have a crack at this. I got some builds in the chamber that I hadn't played yet, like classic builds that people have been playing for a long time and enjoyed, and I just have skipped and just. Like I hadn't played Boneshatter, I hadn't played Winter Orb, Venom Gyre. I can't think off the top of my head, but like there's a good chunk of them which I'd never played before, if not most of them. So I had a few in the chamber that I wanted to try out, and so I was like, this might be a good league to do it because I'm not going to be bogged down by the mechanic. I can just pick whatever at farm strategy I want, maybe something new, and not worry about like league goals or like league challenges or any of that shit. Just try and get my challenge done. If you're wondering why 91 specifically, initially it was just 90, and because I felt like that's like a base level benchmark for a completed character. I wouldn't say it's completed, but it's if you're at 90, you've done most of the groundwork. So I said 90, and then I was like, maybe 90 isn't enough, and I thought, well, I was born in 91, so I figured, why not? I was born in 1991, and now I'm making 19 level 91s. That's kind of cute, so fuck it. It's an extra level, that won't be shit. 90 to 91 is nothing, so yeah, just change it up. I had some caveats to doing this, like, because if you don't have caveats to doing this is the easiest shit in the world. So I didn't do any to get to 91. No 5-way farming, no XP carries or pure breachstones or any of that shit. If I had a normal breachstone, it was only something that I had got myself. I didn't farm breach. So I think I might have had like 3 or 4 breachstones across all the characters. So I didn't, and in fact when I tried to use it, the build I was doing it on was so just dog shit. I think I bricked 2 out of my 4 breachstones, and I think I kept 1. So no breach. I didn't want to do any legion farming, any legion carry 5-way bullshit. No, none of that shit. That was the main thing, because if you do that, it's... Oh, sorry, no, that's not the only thing. The other thing was, once the build is complete, that's it, you leave it. You don't get to sell all the gear and throw it on the next one. That's too easy as well. You had to farm the items and keep the items. So I had to have 19 full characters, playable 91 characters. That was the goal. There's some factors that went into being lucky for me, and but also at the same time, I wasn't invested in playing this game either. So we had a 4-month and 1-week league, which it's normally a 3-month. It's normally 13 weeks, and we had 17 weeks. So we had an extra month there to work with, which definitely helps. But during the time that this league was on, I also played a bunch of Rocket League. I got interested in playing that again. Played a bunch of Counter-Strike. Played a bunch of Dota 2. Played Diablo 4. Played Conan Exiles. So it's just normally I'm not that scattershot with the games I'm playing, but I was kind of had my hand in a lot of different things, and yeah, it was I got distracted at times during this process to get this done, and there were stints where I didn't, like during the Diablo 4 period, I probably didn't even open the game for 10 days. And there were other points when I was playing Counter-Strike and Rocket League where I didn't open the game either. So I ended up jamming myself up a bit into a position where it was the 1st of August, and I needed 4 characters in the next fortnight to get it through. And so I got it done, but I got it done in 12, but it was a bit of a crunch. And also I didn't have any currency, really. I think I had 10 divines left. And so I had to rely on making some currency, and also some of the stuff that I'd been collecting over the past 3 months. Some of that stuff sold and was pretty clutch for me to be able to get gear going. You lot should also pray for my sanity, because I've gone through the campaign 19 times in 4 months, and I've also done Labyrinth, 76 lab runs at the minimum. Fucking shoot me. The leveling process wasn't that bad, because about, I want to say maybe 6 or 7 builds in, I went and bought some leveling gear just so that I didn't have to spend 8 hours in there, because I'm pretty slow in the leveling campaign. I went and got a bunch of hollow palm gear and some stat stacking pieces. Probably spent 3 divines in there just so that I could shave that down. I think I was probably averaging 5.5 hours in there, 5 hours, some of them a bit slower, some of them a bit faster, to kill Katava, while skipping all the bloody passives and having to go back and do that shit as well. Initially I was like, I'll just do that for the Dex area characters, and then towards the end I was like, oh fuck, I'll do hollow palm with a bloody guardian just to get it done. So with some of those attribute conversion jewels. But yeah, anyway, so got it done. So I'm gonna just give a little couple of notes about each build, and then after all that shit, I'm gonna just give them a rating and just throw them in a tier list, because it seems fitting. So yeah, all these characters I'm planning on saving. Like, I'll just let them sit in standard as is. I've got POBs. There's going to be a Google sheet in the description just of every character, so if there's a specific thing there that you wanted to look at more, you'll have everything, you'll see everything. I'll put a timestamp or 2 in, or 16. This is more just, I like to keep a record of when I do something like this, so that I can look back at it in 5 years and be like, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. And so I don't expect anyone to really give a shit about this. It's not, I mean, to the juicers, it's not impressive anyway. It was something impressive to me to get done. I will forget what the fuck I did. Like, I'll forget the characters I played, I'll forget all that shit. So this is a way for me to be able to look back at it and be like, oh yeah, that was cool. Or, I can't believe I said this about that shit. That build, I completely fucked that up. Like, I built that. That's so wrong, what I did there. And that's why it was shit, you idiot. It's nothing to do with the build, So if people enjoy looking at this for whatever reason, then that's fantastic. But yeah, thank you. Quick caveat about the other building links. You need to take the damage numbers with a grain of salt, because I know for a fact that the Trickster build is doing 2.5 times more damage than it's showing on the numbers there. So, because it's not registering the Trinity resonance amount, or the fact that elusive is on, and a few other things. But the point is, take the numbers with a grain of salt. For the Trickster, I went with Frostblades. When it came to doing this build, I had a lot of currency at the time. I had about 40 divines to spend. And I found a build that looked pretty suited up, had an interesting shield, with a bunch of keystones on it, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. So I picked that and started building it, started buying all the pieces. When I got to the weapon, I found a weapon that had better crit, better attacks per second, and was only
10 divines or something like that. And I was like, wow, that's a steal. So I took it. And I was so stoked that I got it. But I wanted to see how much better it was in Puff Building, so I copied it in. And the DPS went from 1.6 mil down to 400k. And I'm just thinking, what have I done here? And then I realized that the build I'm following is using daggers, and I've just spent 10, 12 divines on this claw. So I'm thinking, fuck, I've ruined it. And anyway, I'm looking at the tree and it's like, I've got to make this work somehow. And I look at the tree and the dagger and the claw nose in front of the shadow are actually pretty close together. So with some rejigging, I was able to get it to work. And the way mine has turned out, I actually think it feels better. Like it feels better than it would have if I'd gone with the daggers. Because by going claws, I was able to get the mana gain on hit mastery for the claw wheel, and it just, I never had to worry about mana at all, which was fantastic. By switching to claws, it cost me about 200k DPS. As I was leveling this up and I put all the gear on and started playing it, it just felt like it wasn't doing fuck all for the currency. And then towards the end, like maybe the last 4 or 5 levels, it started, once I got all the passives on the tree, it started to really be firing on all cylinders. And for a map clearer, that thing is just lightning fast. It's a fantastic clearer. The boss DPS is pretty shit, but that's okay, because the build like that, you do breaches, legions, all that sort of shit. You do it just like a map farmer. It's a fantastic build for that. And it just feels so nice to play when you just like a blender flying around, all these blades hitting everything. It's a really satisfying skill to play, I'd say. For the Saboteur, I went with the new Triggerbots. It was a custom create Cospri's Malice build. This was a pretty big failure because I didn't know going in that the mana cost of the spells was going to be twice as high, because you'd have to trigger it from both the bots' locations. And it just meant that I had to spend a lot of effort getting neg mana cost on skills instead of focusing on damage. And it just was an extra hurdle that had to be dealt with. And it was super janky as well, because the trigger bots, you have to convocate them to get them in position, and usually when you're playing a cast on crit build, you want the spells where you are. And these trigger bots are just off with the fairies. Sometimes they'll go hit stuff that you're not even trying to engage on, and so the damage will be delayed because they'll cast the spells, like the frost bolts or whatever, from the location of the bots, and it will have to reach what you're actually hitting. And so there were plenty of times where I just died because I had no upfront damage, no freeze, no real like defense there at my location to just clear just rubbish, and so you would just die easy. And with like 4,000 health, it's just not enough to be having delayed damage whilst being on the forefront of the fight. So yeah, it's just shit. I won't be playing this again. For the Berserker, I went with a General's Cry Blade Flurry build. This build had strong damage, it had good survivability, it was quite mobile, all round a success. I don't know what more to say about it. It's a great build. I would recommend this one for sure. The only possible minor downside to this build is maybe it costs a bit to build, with a Paradoxica and a well-rolled Rislatha's Coil, Curse on Hit, Ascendant's Gentle Touch, gloves. Yeah, it might be a bit pricey. I have no idea what I paid for this, because this was halfway through, and it wasn't like stupidly expensive like the 40 Divine builds, but it might have been 20 or 15. I don't remember. But it
even if it was 15, 20, I would consider it worth it. Just the playstyle feels great. The damage is nice. It's hard to die. It's usually a mistake that you've made. So, yeah.
For my Elementalist, I went with a Fire Trap build, which is pretty basic, I know, but I needed a character for the BPL, and Fire Trap Elementalist seemed like a good build that would scale without much gear. I enjoyed my time on the build. What I ended up using it for was to just farm at series sets so that the juicers could farm the Uber at series from the pieces I would get. Also, it was only a 4-day league, obviously, and towards the end I was actually able to farm. I had all in my delve, and we needed certain rings for the bounties, and I was able to kill 3 alls with this character in my delve. So it's pretty solid damage. I think the numbers were sitting at about 3.5 mil shaper, or whatever calculation DPS you normally see in there. So it did its job, and the gear is pretty average for what it is, and I got to 93 within the 4 days for the BPL. So I've only played one BPL before, and I got to 80, 88 or 89 or something like that. So yeah, it was good to get a bit further and be a bit more useful to the team. So
Now the Gladiator, holy shit, this was trash.
So this was supposed to be a split arrow bleed puncture snipe build.
Like, just slow, clunky. I thought the snipe mechanic, the support, would actually be like interesting. It's so shit. You channel a puncture for fucking 4 seconds, and then you shoot it, and the minion the rare you're aiming at, the essence mob, moves half a unit to the left and you miss. You just wasted 4 seconds of your life standing there channeling an arrow that missed. Holy shit. Absolute garbage. Never again.
And on top of that, the only fucking reason you're playing Gladiator is for bleed explosions, and that's fucking, you can circumvent that shit with a pair of gloves on any other build. What the fuck was the point?
Holy shit. I'm mad. I'm still mad about this.
The Deadeye build I went with is a Venom Gyre build. It's my first time playing it.
The skill.
It was very fast mapper. The single target damage was good enough. Tended to be a little bit squishy. But the main issue I found playing it was that there were so many projectiles that I was getting FPS drops. Like, big FPS drops. And this computer is way too good to be having FPS drops. That was the only downside to the build, was that I would go down to 60 FPS at some points. I think even lower. I wasn't paying attention enough, because when it would happen I was trying not to die, because it's such a fast-paced build and it's sub 4K life. If I like the interaction with the whirling blades, how like you build up charges and then you expend them, and that's your like single target is the expending of the blades you've collected. It kind of feels like a little bit more intricate spectral throw build, because the way you send the projectiles out, they come back and then you send them again. Yeah, just the frame, the fact that the frame rate was so poor, I don't think I would have to play probably not Deadeye, do something else, and so that the projectile count wasn't so high, because I don't know if it was because of the interaction with using Flame Wall and Hydrosphere, that the extra effects on the blades was causing it, or what, but yeah, they shouldn't be having a default animation lagging like that on a build. So for the champion, I went with a Pod's Pan, Corrupting Fever, Reaping Sanguinate build. I think I initially saw this build on Tripolar Bear's stream, and it just looked like a lot of fun. Low investment, decent decent map clearing capabilities. Damage against big rares and uniques is pretty average, pretty poor. Susceptible to dying. It's got 4k health, but the clearing of the bleed explosions from the gloves and just Poet's Pen play is always fun. So it was good. It was the build I went immediately to in the downtime from our party play on the Culler, and I hadn't played Reap or Exsanguinate, the spells, before, so it's essentially my league starter, and for that I think it was fun to play. For the Chieftain I went with Volcanic Fissure Totems. It was okay. I mean, standard totem build, clunky. Damage was pretty meh. I think Pewee Ninja has it at 900k pinnacle per totem. I think have about 3 up usually if you have the correct assortment of totems up. So yeah, it was okay. For the Ascendant, I was looking just through Pewee Ninja for something wacky and came across this build that had 13,000 light and thought, what the fuck is going on here? And looked at the items and he had Light Poacher and Eternal Shroud on. Sorry, not Eternal Shroud. Shroud of the Lightless on. Has a bunch of Abyss items on, and this guy had so many Abyss jewels. It just looked such a strange build, and I thought, yeah, let's see if we can make this work. And the use of EK knives with the Light Poacher projectiles, it makes it such a fucking nice clearing skill, like clearing build. I use this build to chain farm Vaal temples over and over. I think I ran like 60 of them. This is a very cool build. There are some things you have to solve in order for it to work. Like you have to get Burning Ground immunity. We do that through the Pantheon. We have to get rid of poison and bleeds. We do that with 100% the Darkness Enthroned, the Abyss Belt. You need 100%, which costs fucking 3 divines or 4 divines, whatever it was. And then you've got to get perfect rolls for a chance to be poisoned, chance to avoid bleeding on the jewels you put in. There's a lot of moving parts, and if you get any piece wrong, it can go to shit. But with all the things together, it's just a very clever, tanky build. You can die. Sometimes you will just randomly die, and it's not clear what happened. But yeah, this was a cool build, for sure. And just a quick additional note, with the EK version of the way I'm playing this build, it's not good at dealing with bosses. If you were going to be killing bosses with this, you would switch to, I think it's Stormburst or Divine Ire, because you would maintain your spirit charges, and that's where all your damage is. So don't be disgruntled by the damage against like unique bosses. The damage really shines here where you're able to kill monsters and keep the spirit charges up. One of the last ascendancies I needed to get done was the Assassin, and I came across a content creator called Aero. He had done a 10 divine Winter Orb, like self-made challenge to like build a Winter Orb character with under 10 divines, and I'd always wanted to try Winter Orb, and I just never got around to it. When it came out, it was broken as shit, and I'm not really a meta slave. I don't tend to play the main builds. So I avoided the Winter Orb, and then it got nerfed into the ground, and I just forgot about it. That other things I wanted to play. So anyway, this Winter Orb build looked cool. I thought now's as good a time as any to try it out. And it cost me more than 10 div because it was in the last fortnight of the league, and just there's just a scarcity on items, and so you're having to buy items that have been sitting there for a month because the player base is down and there's the circulation of rares and uniques is down. So anyway, playing that Winter Orb build, oh my god, I've been missing out. That the clear of just your Winter Orb procs and your Herald of Ice just deletes the whole screen of, wow, I've been missing out on that. I'm mad. I can only imagine how broken as shit that was when it came out for this to be its current state. So this is one of my favorite builds from the set. 14 divines and you get that. That's fantastic return on investment. Would have been a super sick just breach killer, legion killer, delirium. You could do. I could see it doing delirium orbs. Okay, just put a bit more money into it. This is a big thumbs up from me, for sure.
Oh, the Guardian, I went with a Baron Zombies build, and this is one of the builds I'd say was pretty bad. It had some interesting ideas with the Great Wolf Talisman, the 3 flasks and the flask charge gain thing with the Timeless Jewel, but it just felt clunky as shit. The leech from the zombies wasn't like enough to keep me up at points. It just would get overwhelmed with crap and die, and the damage was not impressive at all. I think you can do a lot better with I probably spent, I don't know, 10 div on this, and I think you could put 10 div into something else and get something way better than this in terms of performance. So yeah, this was overall just a bit of a write-off. For the Hierophant, I went with a Manabond Mjolner build. This was my first time using Manabond, using Ivory Tower, using Indigon as well. I hadn't used that before, where the whole idea is to be burning mana to get increased spell damage. I've always had an affinity to Mjolnir. I like the item. It's great to. I think it was the originator for trigger spells with items. I just enjoy the playstyle. It felt a little bit slow because we're kind of hindered by Cyclone Speed, forcing us to use Stampede for low investment move speed. The damage was pretty good. It's a little bit scary having. I always get a bit freaked out by Coruscating Elixir. The flask puts me off. But so the way this build is able to be low life without a Shavs or Solaris Lorica is the Ivory Tower forces the damage to go through your mana before it hits your life pool, and then once you trigger Arcane Cloak to burn through your mana, which increases your spell damage through Indigo, so you burn your mana. So now your mana is low and you're low life, so you're close to being killable. But by triggering Arcane Cloak, it's a guard skill. And so Coruscating Elixir, you use the Instilling Orbs to put on, used when you use a guard skill. And so by triggering Arcane Cloak, you pull your mana down. Now Coruscating Elixir forces chaos damage to not bypass Energy Shield. So now your Energy Shield is protecting your life. So it's an even balance. The damage was pretty good. Main thing is it's just a little bit slow for a mapper, and it's not got crazy boss damage. So it's just a mid-tier build. For the Juggernaut, I played Boneshatter, and this was my first time playing Boneshatter, and just wow, it's such a great skill. You move so fast, you've got great defenses, it feels really punchy when you attack. I love the sound when you hit stuff. I don't know what that sound is. It sounds like fucking crunching cornflakes or something, but it just sounds good, it feels good, damage is good. Turning into a blender with Berserker is sick. It's just so much fun to play. And you don't need, you can league start this. So this is top 2 builds for me that I played. Yeah, fantastic. I had so much fun playing this, I was annoyed when I reached 91 and I didn't really want to swap characters at this point. Yeah, I may league start this in the new patch because that was not enough play time on that for me to be satisfied with playing something else. For the Pathfinder, I was playing a Culler for some group play off the rip for Crucible League. I don't have any footage of me using it, but I'll just show some video of the stats for the quantity and whatnot. There's not too much to say. I knew what it was going to do. It performed to expectations. It was cheap to build. I think it's probably under 2 divines to get it going, which is what you want. You want to focus your currency on your Aurabot and your carry. You don't want to be wasting it on the Culler. You need to make sure you can get it into as high content as you can, as quick as you can. So for the Inquisitor, I went with a Spark build. I don't really know how I feel about this build. On one hand, when it ramps, the damage is fantastic, but it's kind of like a build that you want to be in enclosed areas. I think if I had this and was farming toxic sewers, maybe even Crimson Temples, it would have been great. But I was doing most of the cemeteries and jungle valleys, fairly open layouts, so it wasn't built for that at all. And it just wasn't fast. Having to use a staff is not great, because then you're restricted to using Flame Dash or Leap Slam. And Shield Charge or Whirling Blaze is just so much faster in my opinion, so it just felt clunky, slow. Sometimes you would get caught out because you'd move too close and you wouldn't get your damage started, and then you wouldn't freeze, and then you would just die. There are parts where, the cast speeds felt a bit slow, but looking back at the footage, it wasn't too bad. But when you opened up into a room with no projectiles yet, and you just walked in and started, there's a good chance you're just going to fall over. So just chalk this one up to okay build put in a poor environment. For the Slayer, I went with a Flicker Strike build, and at this point in the league I had about 50 divines for the budget, and I wanted to see, I've never played Flicker Strike before, and I wanted to see how good it was, so I thought I would just drop the bank on it and just see how good it can be. And I don't really know how to gauge this, to be honest, because I put all this money in and the damage is ridiculous. But the problem is that you just get randomly one-shot by nothing. And I don't know if the character I picked was built based on the context of playing with an Aurabot, but all my stuff's capped, it's all built, but I guess there's not enough layers of defense to it. But when it just randomly dies, it's so annoying because you gotta sit there and put 5 auras back on, which is just Resident Sleeper. But when it goes, holy shit, it would just absolutely bin anything. No joke, it just runs straight through it. I was under the impression that I was doing about 40 mil pinnacle DPS, and I went to PoE Ninja. I looked at my POB and I couldn't figure out what things were on or off, and I just gave up. And I went to PoE Ninja and looked my character up, and it says 48 mil. So yeah, it is crazy damage. I recorded a couple of extra clips of doing some of the I did a Dexarch and Eater, and I mean, you see there are points where it connects and the health just disintegrates. But there's also bits there where it's just janky, like maybe my frenzy charge just dropped off, or I'm not exactly sure half the time. I walk into the Hydra and the guy just fucking falls over, and then I fall over too. Just standard approach to it. For the Occultist, I went with the Intstacking KB Power Siphon build. It's just a reliable build with great clear speed. I haven't played a Wander in quite a while. I'm not sure what to say about this, to be honest. It's just a great map per build with very solid single target DPS and enough survivability to deal with some of the random spikes in damage that you normally see when you do maps. This is up there with the better builds that I did this league for sure. I mean, it still could get into some hairy situations with essence mobs, but I mean, it takes a very special build to not get spooked out by, you know, tier 16, 6 essence, 8 essence mobs. If you're looking for a build to do Legions, Delirium Mirrors, Breaches, Abyss, anything with high density mobs, this is a fantastic build to do that, yeah. So how I decided on the build for the Raider was, after playing in the BPL, they hold a raffle for a bunch of the high-end gear that your team has to like just reward people who participated in the league. And I happened to win one of the raffles, and my raffle was Lightning Arrow Raider build. And he gave me all this gear, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. But it doesn't give you the like what passive tree and shit they had to go along with the build. So I'm looking at the gear that I've got as I'm scrutinizing it to make the build, and it's not really up to scratch to play as like a proper build in terms of what I was doing. I repurposed a lot of parts and ended up having to replace most of it. And the skill gems they were using was horrific. Just maybe the tree I produced was all wrong for it, but I switched out the way it was being built and copied another build, and it was just did a lot more damage. So instead of doing Lightning Arrow, I switched it to Ice Shot. It had a bunch of like Blast Rain, Storm Rain, and some other shit in there too, and I switched them out for different trigger gems, different arrows, and my build just ended up being a lot better. Yeah, so this was my first proper interaction with Vengeant Cascade, I think, and Jesus, that shit's broken. I'm not surprised that's getting binned off the anointments. There's no way that should survive. For a mapper, it's a great mapper. It's just I don't know why I ended up with dash as my movement skill. I didn't have enough movement speed, I think that's the issue. Well, maybe I had enough and it just didn't feel like enough. I don't know. Having dash as your like movement ability feels like shit. So that's my only gripe with it. The damage for single target was okay. It was just a really good mapper. So with the Necro, I went back and did another Spectre build. I do Spectre builds quite often, but it's been a few leagues since I have, because Spectres have kind of been in the bin since Calandra. I think the Forged Frostbearers seem to be quite good, so I thought I'd make a Spectre build because it should be good. This was the best build out of all of them. It probably took 20 divines to get working. I honestly don't know. I've done so many builds. I can't remember the budget of most of it. But even if, let's say this build was 20 divines to make, it's 100% worth 20 divines. There should be some footage that was at the start of this video, but I'll show you some now, and it's 80% Delirium farm tier 16s by myself, and it absolutely shreds them. I was investing, 4 skittering orbs, a couple of scarabs, and I was walking away with like over like a divine per map at least. So I was making, 100 chaos a map, definitely more than 100. In the footage that I recorded there, I did 2 maps, and I made 2.5 divines. I think I'll have a screenshot I can put up now. So anyway, it was a great source of farm. I was getting bulk scarabs and being able to sell them in lots of like 15 divines worth. So a bit of upfront investment and then bulk selling out. And that was, I probably made, between the essences and the scarabs, I probably made 60 plus divines, probably more. I don't know. I know I had points where I sold like 20 divines worth of scarabs. I have, right now, I think I've got 20 divines worth of scarabs just sitting there that I couldn't move towards the end of the league because no one's buying 20 divines worth of scarabs in bulk in the last week. Not at a reasonable markdown, at least. Probably would have had to sell them at like 60% market value to just get rid of them. So I just said, fuck it, I'll just leave them. I'll sell other shit. Uses an Aegis, very tanky build. I mean, I don't know what to say. This thing only died when I would literally get like completely blocked in by like a full abyss blob of shit in the delirium, and I would eventually they would hit me enough times that my block would not recover the ES. Like I would take too many hits where I didn't block in a row and would die. Or Kosis would one-shot me. But other than that, it was super strong. The best build for the league, for sure. I don't care if the Slayer does 50 mil deeps. This build might have done, a third of that. When ramped with all of the Soul Eaters popping off from the Spectres, maybe it only did a third of that, but it was able to farm 80% Deliriums, and that Slayer was not. It would just get randomly one-shot by a projectile, or Kosis would kill it, and I could always guarantee that I would be able to full clear these Delirium maps as the Necro. I might die once or twice, but that Slayer, it was no guarantee I was going to be able to do it in 6 portals. And also you'd randomly die at the start and you'd have no inventory, like you'd haven't picked up no scarabs. So now you got to like get all these scarabs together in the last few collections. So yeah, I think this is the best build. This is fantastic. A rating for the Frostblades build, I'm gonna give it an A, a low A, A minus, because I think this would have been a great build with a bit more time, and it would have proven that. So yeah, we'll call it a A, but an A minus. For the Saboteur, I'm gonna give this an F because I will not touch this again. It's janky shit. If I want to play minions, I'll play minions. I don't want to feel like I'm playing minions whilst I also have to sit my face in front of all the shit. So yeah, rubbish. For a ranking, I'll give the Berserker a B+. It's not quite at the level of the A tier builds that I got to run this league, but it's better than all the B tier builds. So yeah, B+. To give this a rating, I'd say it's a B, because it's not a great build, but for the amount of time, just 4 days, and the amount of investment into the build, I think it performed really well for what it was given. So yeah, it's a B for me. The rating for the Gladiator is F. F for fucking never again. Holy shit, that's enough said. The rating for the Deadeye, it's going to be a B-. It's a good build, but the downside of having frame drops brings it down from like a B+. So yeah, it's the low end of B.
For a rating for the champion, I'm going to give it a C. It was just a pass. It wasn't great at dealing with rares, which was just the main issue. But for a first character, I think it's a great league starter. For the Chieftain, giving this a rating, it's going to be a C for me. I think the 900k per totem, 3 totems, that's decent. It's fine. It's just compared to some of the other characters, it just feels miserable totem walking when you're scared shitless that you're gonna just fall over. Not enough health. I mean, with a bit more investment, this would have been fine. So yeah, a C. It's a pass.
The rating for the assassin has to be A+. Has to be A+. Low to medium investment, fantastic map clearer. Can handle rares pretty well as well. Tankier than you'd expect, I'd say. So yeah, an A+.
I'm a bit torn whether or not to have the Ascendant as A or A+. I don't know if I would rather play this again over the Winter Orb build. It's right there though. Yeah, no, I think we'll stick with an A.
For the Guardian, I'm going to give this a D because it's just barely passable. It's not good. Like, it's not a complete failure. It wasn't an abject failure where I needed to like switch the build to something else. After playing some of the builds I played throughout this league, this one was just I was just praying to get to 91 so I could move on with my life. Rating for the Hierophant, it'll be a B-. It was quite tanky, and the damage was good enough.
The Jug, that's a S tier. That's easy S tier. I want to play it again. Enough said.
For the Pathfinder, it's not really fair to rank this because it wasn't really a build I chose for this. It was before I decided to do all these build things. So I just give it a B because it did what it was supposed to do and there was no strange hiccups or any problems.
My rating for the Inquisitor is going to be a C+ because the damage is good enough. If I'd taken this build and done the correct mapping with it in closed layouts, I think this would have been a B.
For the rating for the Slayer, I'm just going to put it in A+ because it was a huge investment and the damage represents that, but just randomly dying to stuff and having to put on 5 auras again and every time. I feel like if I knew how this character was being used, I would have been able to make... This would have definitely been S, but I don't know what context this build was being used, and I couldn't get it to do a lot of things because it just would get randomly like one shot by just mechanics. So yeah, so we'll call it A+. Rank for the Occultist build, we'll keep it short and sweet. It's an A. It's a great mapping build. I can recommend that one for sure. Rating for the Raider, I'm going to give it a C+.
The single target damage was better than the Corrupting Fever build, and I think the clear was better too. But yeah, I think with a bit of tweaks this could have been a lot better. I don't think I should have been running around with dash. Or this should have been more investment into move speed. I just feel like it wasn't fast enough for a Raider. Raider should be super zoom and it wasn't that.
Rating for Necro, it's S+. It's the best build. Just most reliable build, high damage, good clear. Yeah, this is the best build. I don't have any doubts about that.